Right, boo is the right code word for the class tonight. I'm just telling you, before we get into the class, I need to tell you two things about this class. One, it's going to be very different. You know, Manishtana Halloween Hazeh, Nikola Halloweens. It's going to be real different because I don't think of it as a class. It's not going to be like a beginning and a middle and an end. It's kind of like going into a Renaissance painting. And just a lot of visual images and a lot of concepts which, when you hear the concept, you could just kind of let your imagination play with it and see where it goes. Because it's really going to kind of focus on a thread. And the thread is dealing with this whole idea of what are demons. I mean, I kind of thought, you know, with Halloween coming up and all, it would be kind of cool to do this class and see a little bit what are demons and how are they different than monsters and how are they different than dragons and all these other things. And, you know, do demons have grandchildren, right? Or are the grandchildren the demons? So these are like the kind of things that we're going to sort of look at, and it might be a little bit different. But I do want to just tell you, I remember in 1981, Jeff Seidel invited me to come to Hebrew University and give a class which was called, you can figure out what the it is. If it was legal, would it be mutter? Would it be permissible, right? And I went around and I interviewed all these rabbis in 1981. What were their thoughts about marijuana? That was the class. And I show up at the Hebrew University and I give this class, packed, and within 2 seconds I realized half of the room were potheads and the other half were narcs, who would like basically come to see who showed up. So I was wondering if tonight, like, half of the room would be like people really interested in what are demons, and the other half are demons that actually came to see what's he going to say about us. So, you know, there's just sort of a thought that flashed through my mind. And the way that I came to this class was not only trying to think about a way to elevate Halloween, but a little while ago, I had a dream. Maybe the dream was inspired knowing I had to produce this class. And all I remember in the dream was being in a very tight little room, but there were like 9, 10 people packed in, mostly very distinct-looking rabbis and a few friends, which are different than distinct-looking rabbis. And we're all packed in, and I remember I asked the group a question. I said, what is it that our generation is so different than all other generations because our generation doesn't grow up? All other generations, I remember like my parents' generations, they were kids and then they became mature adults. Somehow, all the people I know in our 60s, we're still just older kids. Somehow we didn't make that transformation like all the other generations. And everyone was stumped. And then I suddenly said, I know the answer. Again, it's just a dream, so don't pay any attention to it. But I said, I know the answer. The answer is, our generation eats too much sugar, and we stare at artificial light. And I have no idea where this came from. So I started thinking about staring at, sugar part's easy, but I was thinking about staring at artificial light, right? Now just imagine if somebody said, I'm going to hold a flashlight in your eyes for 1 hour. I'm just going to hold a flashlight like that, right? You probably would not appreciate that or agree to that. But if I put a little filter over it, so it had little dancing flames, as we will see when we get to the demons, and little dancing colors, so now all of a sudden you would call it a TV show, or you would call it something like YouTube, or your computer, or your mobile phone. Well, guess what? All you're really doing is staring at a flashlight that has a screen over it that just provides you with little colors. So we're looking all the time, more and more and more, just tuning our brain into these little artificial colors. And that brought me to remember a very interesting Torah, which is actually the kickoff point of the class. So if you paid close attention to Rashi, last week's Parsha, Rashi points out that there's a language used in the Bible, which is a language we're going to see quite a lot coming up later in the Bible. And that is, God says to Abraham, in the same way that God says to the Jewish people, God says, because I am the God who took you out of, and instead of it being Egypt, which is the term we're always familiar with, I took you out of a place called Or Kasdim. And Rashi points out there an idea which is kind of introduced, a lot of people are familiar, and that was the famous story of Abraham. His fathers, you know, produced these big idols. and when his father went away and left him with a store, everybody I'm sure knows the story. So Abraham takes this giant axe and he destroys all of the idols but one, the big one. And he puts the axe in the big one's hand. So when the dad comes up and says, what happened? He says, well, obviously it was the big idol that beat up all the other idols. And his father said, what are you, crazy? These idols don't have any life. Says Abraham, right? Now you're getting the point. Nonetheless, the son, Abraham gets busted. He goes in front of Nimrod. Nimrod has this tremendous fire burning. They throw Abraham into the fire, and he comes out alive. Let's take a deeper look at this. What is the fire? What is the light that this fire kindles? So we know in Hebrew that certain letters as a prefix and certain letters as a suffix, they are the letters that surround the root of the word. So we have the word or which can mean light, or which can also mean fire. But then we have this place called Kasdim, perhaps that's its name. Or perhaps it's Shadim. Maybe it's the light of the light like the ones that the demons make. Maybe it's the alternative lights, not the godly light, but the other lights, the lights of the other side. And the image that I use to understand this concept is if you think of a prism. So a prism has let's say a source light, which is a pure white light, and that light now becomes diffracted into 7 different colors of the rainbow. Those 7 lights are connected to the 7 days of creation, and those are the 7 lights upon which the facade of the world that we live in other words, what we see is not what we get, but it's what we think we have. This world is created by the 7 lights, and our human ability with a divine soul has the capability to transcend these lights and go back to the one unified light. So therefore, since Abraham was able to go to the higher light of God, the lower lights of the Or Kasdim had no effect on him. They could not burn him because he was connected on a much higher level to a much higher light. In fact, I'll just tell you a little bit from this coming week's Parsha, just a little side idea, although it's not really the class, but I always do this. I prepared way too much, so since we're not going to cover all of it anyhow, I don't mind if we don't cover a little less than we would have covered. But you have this amazing idea in the beginning of this week's Parsha. You have, again, it's a little bit of an argument between the Ramban and Rashi as to actually what is happening, but in the simple sense, what's happening is 3 entities are showing up at Abraham, right? So were they human? Were they angels? The Gomorrah seems to clearly say that they were angels, and not just any angels, but these 3 angels are 3 of the main power angels of the angel world, which will be another class. This is the demon class, so I don't want to spend too much time on demon, like even Stephen. So the angels, the 3 most powerful angels are Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. Thank you. So these are the 3 angels that show up. Now, without going too much down that road, who's the 4th major angel? Uriah. Where is he? Why doesn't he show up? Right? So we know, if those of you that say the elaborated prayer for going to bed at night, we know there that it says that there are 4 angels that surround me. There's one angel in front of me called Uriel, the light of God, so he lights the way. There is the angel to the side of kindness, Mikael, who is like God, that's Michael. There's the one on the left, which is power, the angel of fire, that is Gavriel, Gibor Kel, the mighty God. And then there's the one behind me for all the stuff I screw up in my life. He'll make it all better, Raphael. He is Refuah, he brings the healing, he makes everything good. So the 3 peripheral angels come, but not Uriel. Why? Because now God had allowed Abraham to grow to such a spiritual level that the Aleph of Abraham would replace in this world Uriel. Abraham would now be the Or Kel, the light of God. In other words, now that he was able to beat the light of Or Kasdim, he could now rise to a higher light. He would become the light of God. And as the light of God, he now would work in this world as Uriel. In fact, there's a Medrash Rabbah that even says that Uriel himself says that now Abraham, I am not needed in this world because now Abraham is the source of that light. So this is when Abraham's encountering these 3 angels, He's encountering them because he's basically now being taught that he will interact with these three angels in this world. How do you bring out that angelic light, as long as we're on this, and then we'll dive into demons. So it's very interesting. When they used to come visit the Chazan Lublin, one of the great rabbis in his generation, he would always stare at the open Talmud in front of him. And when he stared at it, the visitors would often ask, like, eye contact, hello, little human, like, why are you always staring at me? And he says, no, you don't understand. I'm listening very carefully to what you're saying, but in the Talmud is the Or HaGanuz, is the hidden light of God. And therefore, I know that by staring with all of the right kavanot, all of the right ideas, I can actually extract the hidden light and convert it and use it for blessing. I have that ability. That's why I'm called the Chazan, the visionary, or the one who can be able to bring that light out of that. How does that work? So, if you look at the four primary angels, and you take the first letter of each name, it spells the word Gomorrah, which is Talmud. You have Gavriel, you have Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Gomorrah. So therefore, when a person concentrates carefully in the learning of the oral Torah, the Talmud, they are able to extract a holy light that then allows the four angels to engulf them, and above them, Shechinat Kel, the divine presence, hovers over that person. That becomes like that which was the element that protected Abraham from the fires of Or Kasdim. Okay, so now the question is demons. What? Okay, so we already identified them. I mean, the only place that in the Chumash, in the Torah itself, that demons are clearly called demons is actually in Devarim. But the Gomorrah seems to have many sources, and in Tanakh there are many references to the demons, and in the Zohar, and they're endless. All we're going to do tonight is focus on a kind of an aerial view. As I mentioned, this is like, you go to Hollywood and you get on that little bus and you drive and they tell you, oh, that's where, like, Fred Astaire lived. So we're going to go to Demon Land and just kind of like bob around, and hopefully all of us will make it back safely and sort of take a look at that. So the question is, where did the demons come from? So it seems to be that there's a particular female entity who, according to many sources, including Talmudic sources, was actually married to Adam. And this female source, their relationships that they had, she becomes the mother of all demons. And since there is a tradition, which I'm not going to mess with, I'm always afraid to give a class like this, to say the wrong thing, and I'm gone. So before, God forbid, that should happen, so I have my fireproof tzitzis on. So I'll just get to distort her name, and I'll just call her Lila instead, like the Lila Tov, Lila of the night. And so the idea with that Lila, it says that by her, there are many sources in Gomorrah. By the way, if anyone wants, after this class, you can get my email from Aaron, and I'd be happy to send you all the sources that I'm using tonight. So in case you want to go back and look something up. Otherwise, it's going to get too long if I start saying Chagiga, this, that, and so on, and all the rest of that. So it begins by pointing out that this was potentially the mother of all the birth of all of the demons. In fact, there's even one Gomorrah where the Gomorrah cautions that a person should not sleep alone at night unless there's a light on in the house. Because Gomorrah says there, if not, they could be seized by, and the term is the mother of all demons, and of course, again, brings Lila as the reference there. It also says that, this is we're going to get a lot of funk here tonight. This is hopefully one of my subliminal messages is to make you have a whole new insight into Talmud, like you probably didn't get, A, if you went to yeshiva, or B, if you never really learned Gomorrah. So here's a wild Gomorrah. Gomorrah says, if a woman gives birth to a human baby, which already means like as opposed to what? Oh, look at that, human, whoa. Okay, surprise. But if a woman gives birth to a human baby with wings that looks like Lila, the mother of demons, nonetheless, the baby is still considered human, but just has wings. Which is one of the things that I totally love about Talmudic rabbis. It's like, they're not blown away by this. It's not like, whoa. It's just simply, we have a practical issue. Does this kid put on tefillin or not? Is he human? Is he demon? So therefore they deemed, so to speak, that this kid, even though he's got wings and might look like a demon, no, nonetheless, he's human, just happens to have wings. Rabbah has an amazing story where he talks about a particular famous demon known several times in Shas by the very demonic name of Herman, right? Like in the Munsters, I always wonder, like the Jewish writers, if they always drew their material from where it came from. So Herman Munster, really should have been Herman Demon, because we'll see later that demons are not Munsters or monsters. So this demon was actually spotted jumping back and forth, going over a bridge in the middle of Babylon, where he was jumping from one mule to the other, one racing horse to the other racing horse, balancing between him 2 cups of wine back and forth. But the reason I'm bringing it here is he was identified as the son of Lila, the mother of all demons. So there are many references here of who could it be that was actually the mother. However, there's a second opinion. And the second opinion, quite interesting, is from the Ramban. And the Ramban says that the mother of all demons was actually Nama. Now, we always think of Nama as Noah's wife. Right? And when Rashi brings that there, and not that long ago, we did Parshas Noach. That's the nice thing I love about this part of the year. You never hear anybody say, excuse me, what Parsha is it this week? Right? So a couple of weeks ago, it was just Noach, and there we see Nama, and Nama is his wife. So they usually say that what happened was, first, she was married to the king, or actually, the name here is Shimadan, who was the one, together with her, produced Ashmedai, who we're going to see a lot about later, because he was, or is, the king of all demons. It's kind of cool, like a king demon, you know? I mean, as opposed to like, just generic demons, like the minions, right? No, they're different types of demons. You have to know where they are, and so on. This is the king demon. It's good to be the king. So the king demon, however, he says, trace actually that this was a marriage that Nama had, and then later she was able to elevate herself when she became, of course, Noach's wife, and thus ultimately the mother of all the world. So we're going to go now into a whole bunch of different categories. Category 1 is, what are the differences between demons and ghosts? What are demons ghosts? Are ghosts demons? Is ghosts a subset of demons? So the answer really is quite interesting. The Ritva in the Gomorrah brings that ghosts appear with a clothing that they were buried in. And I always have a philosophy that, especially in Europe, that actually the source of ghosts, because we just encountered a ghost or a ghost house in Sweden, the source of ghosts is actually, I always thought, maybe just religious Jews. That they would have their talis on, their white sheets, and they would be out there like the Breslevers, swaying, and somebody would walk by and they would hear, instead of howling, they would hear, na, 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 right? But whatever it was, they would be wearing these, right? And like, so from afar, the non-Jews would, whoa, must be ghosts. But anyhow, whatever it is, we know that ghosts are actually, there are many Gomorrahs, which is not for tonight, but there are many Gomorrahs that talk about ghosts. Ghosts are from humans. Ghosts are human souls. Let's call them trapped souls that weren't able to leave the earth's pull at this point. But this has nothing to do with what demons are. Demons are also not dragons. There is an amazing dragon story in the Talmud of the 7-headed dragon. A particular rabbi comes to the Beit Midrash of Abaya, and through circumstances beyond his control, he's forced to spend the night in their synagogue, which was way out in the field where nobody was. And they wanted to set the rabbi up that he should actually be there because they knew that this monster would attack him, and because of the holiness of the rabbi, he could defeat the dragon. So, I mean, just get the visual, right? We're like in about, I don't know, over 2,000 years ago in some, completely abandoned field, and there's this big stone-like structure and maybe a few little torches burning off the side and shadows everywhere, right? Shadows, shadalids everywhere. And here he is kind of like sleeping, but like with one eye bink, wide open, like a little radar eye. You know, I don't know if you ever saw the Gary Larson cartoon where he came up with a little tube that you can use so when you're in bed, you could be completely under the sheet with nothing exposed but still getting air, right? So the monsters couldn't get you, right? So he's like that, but like one eye constantly, and then sure enough, imagine you hear like way down the hill, and boom, there comes this flying seven-headed dragon. And so the rabbi jumps out of bed and he bows, Baruch Hu, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Each time he bows, cut off one of the heads. He was able to cut off the 7 heads, and that was the end of that demon. Of course, the rabbi was very upset, needless to say, you know, because one whoops and you're out. But nonetheless, that dragon is not a demon. So what then really are demons? So the first real source we have is that when it talks about Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, when it says that King Solomon ruled over the upper worlds, the Gomorrah says that over the upper worlds, this is a very important point, upper world, right, above us, upper worlds, it means that he ruled over the demons. This is what the Gomorrah clearly says. So then the Gomorrah goes even further. It says, what is the difference between a demon and an angel? And what is the difference between a similarity between a demon and a human being? So the Gomorrah says that the difference, my mistake. How are demons similar to angels and how are demons similar to human beings? So they're similar to angels because they have wings, of course. We learned about that already from the surprised mother, right? And then because they can fly like angels can from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe. And because, like angels, they can hear what's being said in heaven. How are they like human beings? So the Gomorrah says, because they eat and drink. Kind of cool. And because they have intimacy, right? I'm sure it's red hot, but we won't go there. And then they also have little babies. And they also die of old age. So again, the whole image, or at least the Hollywood images that we were plagued with, suddenly here you have, there's somehow, you know, we're like going into outer space to try to find other life forms. According to Chazal, there's a life form right here that we haven't really been in contact with or have touched, and they have a whole mannerisms. They are kind of half angelic, half human, which is why it would make sense when it said that King Solomon had to rule the upper worlds to even be able to control the demons. The Torah even goes on talking about demons and parents, brings a Gomorrah of a particular mommy demon with her little boy demon, and she's yelling out to the little boy demon saying, hey, don't play near that tree, because that's where your daddy demon got killed. And sure enough, the Gomorrah concludes that that's unfortunately where, you know, she lost the little baby demon because he was by that tree. Now, I don't know if demons sit Shiva. I don't know how they, you know, what's the mourning process, but we definitely see a certain component here. Now, of course, the key question is, which everybody's going to start looking around the room at each other, how do you tell the difference between a demon and a human? Right? So the wings aren't necessarily the giveaway because you can have them tucked in behind your shirt. So the question is, the Gomorrah discusses how do you tell the difference? And the Gomorrah answers, and I'll follow this up with just pure Gomorrah in a second. It answers because a demon's shadow doesn't have a shadow. Human shadows have a shadow to the shadow. Mm-hmm. See? Well, but demon shadows, their shadow doesn't have a secondary, like a little extra on the shadow of their shadow. Theirs has, so the Gomorrah elsewhere says, in case you're curious, I will give you the source. It's in Avodah Zarah on page 48b, where the Gomorrah there clearly defines what's called a shadow's shadow, in case you want to know how to distinguish that. Could be relevant someday if you're in an elevator with some suspicious-looking people. So the next question becomes is, how do you tell the difference between a demon and a witch? Now you can have a witch in here. Halloween. What's Halloween without a witch? So the Gomorrah says that a demon will ask for a specific type of a vessel before it casts a spell, whereas a witch can cast a spell with any kind of a vessel. The Gomorrah talks about the idea that there are unique languages, and it mentions the language of angels, the language of palm trees and the language of demons. In fact, the Gomorrah elsewhere says, Rebbe Yochanan ben Zakkai, not only did he know all of this, the written Torah, the oral Torah, Jewish law, Agadah, and the abstract, what we would call the Kabbalistic, and also the rabbinic, and he also knew astronomy, and he also knew geometry, but he also knew, whatever this means, clothes washer, laundrymen's proverbs. He also knew fox fables, and he also knew the language of the demons, palm trees, angels, and of course, the Kisei HaKavod, the secrets of creation itself. One more Gomorrah about this in this area. What are the demons like? So Gomorrah says, and this should bring to you like Marvel movies, especially X-Men, right? So every time the bad guys today, they can whoop, turn into different people, and right? Every 2 seconds they're turning into different people, so you don't really know who they are. Well, this is the power of a demon. Because the Gomorrah says that manna, right, the bread that the Rastafarian bread, hey manna, that comes down from heaven, so that bread is compared to demons. Why, the Gomorrah says? Because it changes form many times. So sort of an interesting thing there. But here's a really cute thing I love about demons. And this is probably if you're like really encountering a demon and you want to bust him or her. So just be aware that demons will never use God's name in vain. So that could be an indicator if you're, because unfortunately, that person's definitely human, listen how they talk, but not a demon. In fact, it even goes on to say that dreams are delivered to human beings, either, those of you that are familiar with all the Gomorrahs and Brachot about dreams, but dreams are actually delivered either through angels or demons. These are also missionaries of demons themselves. And then the Gomorrah says, Rabbi Yochanan, it says that Yochanan knew 300 different types of demons in one city. And nonetheless, he confessed he could not understand their essence. So this is a very interesting idea as well. Again, they're all not just like, remember when you were like, or maybe girls did this more than guys, you take a piece of paper and you fold it up and you cut out $1 and then you open them up and they all like look alike. That's not demons. If one village alone or city had over 300 different types of demons, there's a whole amazing myriad of what these entities are probably all about. This, I now call this as only one source, I call it the strange nature. This is really very, very deep Kabbalah. In fact, it's so deep Kabbalah, A, I have no idea what it's talking about. B, even if I did, I then would know that I didn't know. And C, when you hear it, you'll also realize you don't know. But I will just read the words, okay? So the Gomorrah says, after 7 years, a male hyena becomes a bat. And a bat becomes a thorn, and a thorn becomes a demon. So I'm just leaving you with that formula in case you want to go to the zoo and kind of corral a few little hyenas so you could just start, producing your own little demon farm. But what actually that means, I have no idea. But here's something I found extremely cute, that not only did demons not use God's name in vain, but they have a very holy nature. In fact, the Gomorrah says that even demons worry, check this out, even demons worry about their portion in the world to come. It's an interesting idea. I mean, we always think about the idea of world to come as something that is human because we have free will. And through our free will, we're making significant choices that impact our being. And that being is once we shed our corporal shell, that being that we've built inside of us is going to be our essence forever. And I always talk about the person who ignores their life or gets so involved in the 7 colors of the rainbow that they never find the deep spiritual meaning in life. And then all of a sudden, after 120 years, when the person dies, and there's this unbelievable vast universe, and all they've built with their life is like a little scooter, right? As opposed to what you could do with your life. It's unbelievable. What you could pack in with growth, with wisdom, with development, with knowledge, with actions, with speech. What you could become, the Zohar says, when a human being is born in this world, it's like a new sun, S-U-N, is created. But if you navigate through this world properly, when you leave this world, the Zohar says, it's like a new galaxy has been born. Right? If you ever look at any of these deep space Hubble photos, it's mind-boggling what's out there. And that's our opportunity. That's why the Zohar does not call this world a world of truth. It doesn't call it a world of peace. Actually calls it Alma the Chakra, a world of lies. But what it most importantly calls it is Olam Asiyah, a world of performing, doing, action. While the clock ticks, this is our sacred opportunity to elevate ourselves in our lives. So now we're going to turn to the king. As I said before, it's kind of good to be the king. The Gomorrah talks about this incredible story. I'm sure most of you know it, so I won't go through it. But the bottom line is King Solomon wants to build a temple. There's a restriction on how the altar can be built, because since the altar is a symbol of peace, a sword could not be used. So they needed a little worm called the shamir, which could eat through stone. And that little worm would be able to allow King Solomon to build the altar. And the only person who knew who this little worm was the king of the demons. And therefore, Ben Yehoyada is sent on a mission to capture the king. And once he captures him, that's how they get the little bug or the little worm, and through that and so on. But the Gomorrah doesn't just simply shortcut. It really goes through the whole story. And it even brings out the beautiful side of the king of the demons. It says, while the demons are naturally prone to damage, it's not personal. It's just, you never had anyone in your house who's like a klutz. So I guess maybe that's their nature. Their nature is they're prone to damage. It says, nonetheless, as he was damaging things left and right, trying to get free from having been captured by this great Jewish general, at one point as he was about to destroy a house, he saw there was an elderly widow who lived in the house. And so therefore he twisted and contorted in a way that actually broke one of his own bones so as not to destroy the house in order to protect the woman. It's an amazing idea, and it gives a whole different kind of vision and a light to what's going on here. In fact, the Gomorrah also says that as this journey was going on, the king encountered one of the sorcerers of Jerusalem. Sorcerer is somebody who is sitting there laying out, actually today we call it the opinion page in newspapers, but in those days it used to be known as people who said they could predict the future. And so the sorcerer was there, and he was explaining what the future was all about, and the king merely laughs at him and he says, "You think that you know the future? You don't know anything about the future. In fact, you don't even know about the treasure that's buried beneath your feet." And of course, the commentators explain this. This is a very famous, one of the Helm stories, which I'm sure a lot of people know as well, about the guy who has the dream, and there's a treasure, and it's at the end of the bridge, and he's digging the bridge, and sure enough, it's right there under his feet. So this is really what it took the king of the demons to give tochacha, to give rebuke to a sorcerer, saying, what are you wasting your time thinking you can figure out the future? The future will be the direct result of living correctly in the here and now, the treasure that's under your feet. The other thing which I also thought was interesting was, again, this king was a hostage for 7 years during the time that the Beit HaMikdash was being built. But ultimately, he had a battle with King Solomon, and according to Jewish traditions, at least the Talmudic traditions, he literally blew Solomon out of this universe, and remember, demons can take forms. He became King Solomon, sleeping with all of King Solomon's wives. Whoa, Solomon, right? So he's suddenly like a whole new being, looked like King Solomon, ruled the world with King Solomon. The Gomorrah says until the Sanhedrin, the great court, discovered what was going on, and they were actually able to bring back the original King Solomon to his rule. And here's the best part I love about the king. I mean, there are dozens of references in the Talmud. I'm trying to streamline it a little bit here. But another one is, it says, what does the king of demons do? I mean, really, what does he do? It's kind of an interesting question. So the Gomorrah says that he goes to the Yeshiva Shalmala. He goes to the heavenly Torah Beit Midrash, learning room, and he sits there and studies Torah with all of the angels and the Rabbanim and so on. He's a real yeshiva bacher by night, and by day, that's what he's back down here on the earth as well. So now let's go into the bad demons, because there are all kinds of demons, just like there, I guess there are all kinds of people. And the question really is, are demons harmful? So the Gomorrah qualifies this right away, with it almost in a way that only, it's sort of like that kind of the Jewish thinking, which is you use your right hand to scratch your left ear. So he says like this, the rule is, okay, listen carefully. If a person does not worry about protecting themselves from demons, the demons won't bother you. If a person makes an effort to protect himself from demons, the demons will find you. That's how the Gomorrah qualifies it. It's almost as if to say, Shomer Poseidon, like Hashem protects the fool. So it's almost like saying, just do what you were created to do. Just be human. Don't worry about demons. Do what you need to do. Demons aren't really interested in you anyhow. They got their own thing they're dealing with. They're worried about their own heaven, as we saw, right? So they're not going to bother you. But as soon as you become the Uber Hacham, the smart guy, who's all of a sudden got the little kamiyah and this and that and all the rest of it, so they got to make sure you're really doing it right. Because basically what you're doing is saying, on guard. As soon as you're saying that, they're going to take you up on that. And if I have money on that, it's not going to be on you. So the question is, do you really want to get involved in that space? That's the Gomorrah's suggestion. And in fact, the Gomorrah goes on in another place where it actually says that explains when a person even needs to be suspicious of demons. For example, the Gomorrah says here that there was a great angel, one of the angels called Suriel, who was standing before God, and he taught Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, if everybody remembers the story, we say this during Yom Norayim, that unfortunately when the 10 martyrs, before they were killed, so Rabbi Shmuel, using different names of God, went upstairs to see if it was the will of God and if they should surrender their lives. But this was not the only time that Rabbi Shmuel had used these talents to go into the higher world. So the Gemara says that once when he came up to the higher world, so this angel had to tell Rabbi Shmuel that he has to be careful because when you come to heaven, there are always a group of demons who are waiting for a person to fall. I mean, take it out of the demon framework in a minute. I want to just sort of maybe say a side point here, which is another concept we talk about, which is often called the Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination, although this is not what demons are about. But the bottom line is that the Baal Shem Tov tells a very beautiful midrash. It says that every time a person's evil inclination gets a person to sin, he rips his clothes and sits on the floor mourning. And every time a person overcomes his Yetzer